Hello artist, this is the much anticipated 2024 favorite art supplies. This video is quite long. Grab a cup of something and let's get started. I will put links to everything I can find below. Enjoy. The thing I want to talk about is my acrylic paint setup, and I will talk about two things here that really made me completely fall in love with acrylics this year. One of them is the kind of paint that I mostly use, which is, for the most part, if the colors that I like exist in this formula, then I really try to use Flash Paint. Flash Paint is a French brand and they make the paint in tubes or jars, glass jars. I find the tubes are just a little bit easier to work with, but the jars are obviously, you don't get plastic and you can reuse them. So you might want to start with the jars if you want the containers also, and then switch to the tubes. I love the formula of this paint. It's my favorite formula. Technically, this is vinyl paint or like emulsion vinyl paint. In practice, it works the same as acrylic, and that's how I use it, and I use it together with various brands of acrylic paints, and I never had any issue. It is beautifully matte finish, and you can layer on top of it with pencils and pastels in a way that is really hard to compete. There are other matte paints. I haven't tried everyone on the market, but from the ones that I've tried, this is my absolute favorite. The problem is I need to order this online, and this is not cheap. So if you paint a lot, if you paint large, then probably this is not like the most cost-effective paint. But when I'm not working too big, or just like I really want the finish of these, then this is like my absolute favorite. Now, the other thing is this setup. So this system is inspired by Sandy Hester's system, and I have to say, really, everyone uses the words game changer, right? But this really has been, for me, a game changer. One of my problems with acrylic was having that setup, and then, within a few days, or like within a few hours, your paints are dry and you can't use them. Unless you have these like stay wet palettes with all these like surfaces, and it just gets a little bit messy, and it's just not a system that works for me. This, however, works beautifully. So there are a few components to this. Now, actually, I haven't used this in a minute because I was trying out so many other things, but these are all still workable. And I've had this palette. It's now the end of December. I think I set it up sometime in August. And of course, I replenished it multiple times, but it did occur that I would not use it for like a couple of weeks. I think even up to like 3 weeks that I wouldn't touch it, and nothing ever dried on me. Sometimes it would require to like go in and like mix them a little bit. I also add, to get like that perfect consistency, I add a mixture of matte medium and water to get that kind of like heavy cream consistency that is still workable but very pigmented. And having this setup, this is just like a box that I bought, just like from a local store. And it is pretty airtight. I always spray these with water before I close it as I'm working, also to keep kind of everything juicy. And sometimes I have inside also this kind of moist towelette. It reminds me of a Gilmore Girls episode. Nothing has gone moldy here. You can see that the paints are contaminated. I'm absolutely okay with that. I use it to my advantage to get a little bit more interesting colors. I really truly love this setup. Thank you to Sandy Hester for introducing me to it. And I will show you the colors probably in a separate video because I don't want this to be too long. But these are just like these little cups that I got from Amazon. I have a ton more. Honestly, I haven't really needed to change them because nothing really dried up on me. This really has been a game changer. I've painted more this year with acrylics than previously, and this has a lot to do with it. Next thing I want to talk about is my watercolor setup. Watercolor is still a medium that I use very, very often, and I currently have two palettes that I use the most. This palette, I don't know if you can still get it. I will try to look it up, but I love this palette because I have the wells here for my regular paints that I keep using and always want to have on hand. And then here I have an area for pans where I can either pour more paints, or sometimes I buy just a pan of a shade to try it before I commit to a whole tube. Or sometimes I just have colors that come only in pans, such as Aquarius watercolors. So I can combine the two, like pan paints and tube paints. And this, I love, love, love this palette. I use it all the time. But this year, it had a little bit of competition, which is from this palette. And I call this one palette to rule them all, because this one has a combination of gouache and watercolors. I just love this combo. There is something about having a few gouache paints, especially for sketchbooks, where I feel I can't use, especially if I'm using sketchbooks that don't have watercolor paper, that I feel are just not, it's not as enjoyable to use more water in these sketchbooks. And in those cases, I really feel that gouache gives me more of a punch, gives me more intensity. And yes, also that matte finish, which I personally like, than watercolors. And there's also something about just like having this small, cute palette that is just like so easy to grab and paint and travel with. I absolutely love it. I should also do an updated what's in my travel palette, because I did do a video, but I changed a few things since then. But I love that. I love that combination of gouache and watercolors. What I love about gouache is kind of that creamy opacity. And what I love about watercolors is a lot of like the dark colors and the granulating and separating colors that can only be found in watercolor and cannot be found in gouache. And so I really love that combination. And now when I'm painting most of the time, I really feel like, okay, now I need some gouache, or now I need some watercolor. Now, you don't have to have these two together. You can get similar effects if you have like white gouache in your watercolor palette, which is what I have here. This is all watercolor except these two. This is white gouache, and this is buff titanium gouache from Daniel Smith, which is fantastic. So you can get like those more opaque colors if you have white gouache with your watercolors, but I still found that I really enjoyed having, for example, the ultramarine blue here that I have in this palette is gouache, and honestly I didn't feel I was missing on a lot by not having ultramarine blue in watercolor. Another game changer? No, I'm not gonna say that, but I think this really was the year that I used gouache and watercolors together in such a natural and consistent and, you know, daily way. And this has been kind of that palette to rule them all. It's still not perfect. Sometimes I find myself like if I start with this one and then I find myself going to this one for mostly like the darks. Or I will start with this one and then I feel like, okay, I want that more opacity. So obviously I can add the gouache to this palette. I haven't done that till now, so I will need to figure out something, because I don't want to have like all the time to have to use like multiple palettes. But these have been my favorites this year, like hands down. Let's talk about mixed media. This year, I can say also that there are some very, very clear winners. I'll start with pencils. I have loved using pencils this past year, and I have been drawing in my artwork and sketchbooks more than ever before. I've been really inspired by a lot of illustrators, and I really enjoy that line between paintings and illustrations. Really, really enjoy that. So you can see I have a lot of small pencils. I think I will talk about specific colors in a separate video, like my favorite colors, because I'm all about the color. But the brands that I have used the most this year, I really, really enjoyed using the Caran Luminance. These are probably the most expensive pencils out there, which is really annoying, but they are glorious. Also, another favorite brand of mine that I have mentioned many times in the past. If I lost all of my art supplies, this would be one of the first things I would go out and buy, and it would be the full set of Prismacolor pencils. The price is fantastic. If you buy the whole set, like if you don't have any pencils, usually I don't recommend buying an entire set. But with the Prismacolors, and I've said it before, and I stand by that, so this is a recurring over the years recommendation, I would totally buy the entire set. Nobody does color like Prismacolor. Okay, maybe Holbein also are very, very good with the colors, but the Prismacolors are just beautiful. I prefer creamy, soft pencils, so take that under consideration. These are my preferences. And the Prismacolors are super, super soft and vibrant, and the colors, again, are unmatched almost. I just love them. It's such a great investment to get the full set. I know there are a lot of videos, if you fall down that rabbit hole on YouTube, there are a ton of videos about how the quality has declined and they're no longer manufactured in the US. This is at least the information that I got as I was researching, like if I should get the set or not. I decided to get the full set and I absolutely love them. I did not have any quality issues, and so, you know, nowadays you can order this from Amazon and you can return it, I think, after 30 days if, you know, you're not happy with it. So I really don't think there is a risk to it. I love them, and I just think they're like the best. If you want to play around with pencils and you want a lot of colors and you want creamy, beautiful pencils, go to Prismacolor, absolutely no doubt about it in my eyes. I don't think they're light fast, so take that under consideration. And then I also really like the Holbein pencils. I don't have a ton, but they do have some really, really beautiful colors. As I said, like Prismacolor does colors so well, and Holbein as well. They have some beautiful colors. And then another favorite, and I know I'm not the only one that absolutely loves these, are the Derwent Drawing pencils. I think they're only like 24 colors. It's a beautiful muted color story, and it's just a great go-to, super soft, lovely pencil if you want a more natural color scheme or color story. They are absolutely beautiful. The black one was my favorite for a long, long time, and I think this year it was bumped for the dark indigo from Caran Luminance, but the black one is brilliant, and I still love it, and I still use it a lot. So these are like my reigning royalty of papers, like my absolute favorites. And then another product that I really cannot live without, and this would be that first purchase after, if I lost all of my supplies, this would be like one of the first things I would buy. The Prisma pencils, the Caran Neocolor wax pastels, which I will talk about now, and pretty much everything that I show you in this video. These are like my ride or die supplies. So Caran Neocolor come in two forms. There's the Neocolor 1, which is here, and there's the Neocolor 2. The difference is the Neocolor 1 is, they're both wax pastels. The Neocolor 1 is water resistant. The Neocolor 2 is water soluble. Another difference is that the Neocolor 2 comes in a lot more and beautiful colors. I wish they made Neocolor 1 in all of those colors too. The Neocolor 2 is more popular, and I think for good reason, because of its versatility. I mention this all the time, and I stand behind it. This is like one of the unicorns of the art world. It's a product that everyone loves. Really, really everyone loves this. Rightly so. They are super pigmented and just a joy to use. Now, I will say they are similar, but I have found that the Neocolor 2 is slightly creamier in formula. It is, I find, a bit more enjoyable to use, but since I like to use them in a very specific way, I like to sketch with these wax pastels in my watercolor and gouache paintings as a starting sketch, and then I use watercolor on top of them, and both of them resist watercolor if you don't agitate them. If you agitate the Neocolor 2, it will also dissolve because it is water soluble. But they both resist if you don't mess with them too much. This has a slightly better effect, and therefore I do prefer these for my watercolor paintings. But in general, like in my sketchbooks, I do use these more often. I think it's also because of their formulation, not just because I have these in this very handy tin, and these are in this drawer that it just takes more space. But I think it's also just like the formula. They're just like a touch more creamy, and so I really like using them. But yeah, I use these all the time. They are fantastic for drawing if you like that, you know, crayon-like quality of a line, which I do. It just reminds me of kids' drawings, and I love those, and I'm really drawn to those. And as I said, I've been very, very influenced by illustration this year, and I just love that line quality that you get with these, that I just don't feel you can get with you can get similar things with pencils, but for example, with like pens and markers, you don't get that line. Another thing I want to mention is this little bag. There are a lot of storage solutions for sketchers and painters if you want to carry your supplies with you, and I've tried a lot of them, and there are a lot that I haven't tried because they're so expensive, because they're made by, you know, artist brands. This one was actually recommended by a fellow member in the Joy Art Club, my monthly membership, and I decided to try it because it was very affordable. It's just a very, very simple case for pencils. You can find also similar things for like organizing cables if you don't want like these things, but this came with 3 of these inserts. And it's just a very affordable solution to keep all of your sketching supplies. So I used it quite a bit this year in my studio, out of my studio, traveling. I went with this to Greece, and it was just a really great way of having everything in one space. There's a zipper here, and you have here, you can fit like a nice A5 sketchbook in this without a problem. And if you want to use these, you can use them, but they are removable, so you don't have to use them. And you just have like a lot of space. So another mixed media supply that I have used more this year than in previous years, and I really enjoyed, were markers. There are a lot of brands of markers out there, but my favorite for the moment is these ones by Faber Castell. These are the Goldfaber Aqua dual markers. I don't think these are light fast, so again, I mostly use them in my sketchbook. And they have a nice array of colors. Probably the Tombow is super famous, has probably a better color selection, but these have really nice colors as well. You can buy them open stock or in sets. What I love about these, they're not as long and they're not as chunky as some of the other markers that I like. You know, like this one, for example, the Ecoline. It's quite chunky. So these are not chunky. That's one of the things that I like about them. The other one is the tips. So one side has the brush tip, which I love. And then the other side has, I'll show you in comparison to the Tombow. So you can see the Tombow has like this bullet tip, which I'm not a fan of. And the Faber Castell one has this tip, which I absolutely love. And I really like the line that you get with it, but it makes for a really nice line, I find. And so unlike some other brush markers where I just didn't find myself using both tips, with this one I really enjoy using both of the tips. So that makes it a winner for me because it's really usable. Faber Castell has a ton of markers. I think they're all very high quality, but this one I just really like everything about it. These are water soluble, but I don't use that feature much or at all. I just like to have a marker where I can put down color really fast. I want to give this item an honorable mention because this is new to me, and so I can't say that this has been a 2024 favorite. But since I got it, I've really fallen in love with these, and I find them so much more enjoyable and easy to use than my other oil pastels. These are the Mungyo Gallery oil pastels. This is a 48 set in a very atypical manner. I didn't get the biggest set I could get my hands on, but decided to go with a 48 set, which costs around $20. And I absolutely love it. The colors are lovely. I wish I'd gotten the bigger set, really. I would. If I could go back in time, I would get the bigger set. Obviously, it costs more, but I think it's totally worth it. So the colors are beautiful. The formula is beautiful. But what I really enjoy about these oil pastels is that they are super creamy and like lovely to work with, but they are not as messy as my other oil pastels. And of course, the price is fantastic for the quality. So I wanted to mention these because these make me use oil pastels a lot more than I have in the past. Because all the ones that I've tried were either too hard and then I didn't get that like lovely creaminess, or they were so messy that I was like, okay, this is just not worth the mess because it's like so oily and sticky and like messy to hold. For example, like the Sennelier ones, which I love, but they're just so messy. These are not. These are like just the perfect formulation, in my opinion, for a fantastic price. So I would say whichever budget, if you want to try oil pastels, check your budget and then buy the biggest set that you can get for that price. I absolutely love them, and from what I've seen, they're also like a crowd favorite, and in this case, for good reason. There are a lot of popular art supplies that don't speak to me or are not my picks, but in this case, I have to agree. These are just lovely. So I wanted to mention them in case you're in the market for an oil pastel or you're curious about the medium and want to try them. It is a messy medium, but it's a very easy way to get that like creamy, opaque line, which again has its special qualities, right? There's just like something about that line of pastel that you just don't get from any other form, I feel. So there are a lot of like really great colors here. So they did that also well. It's not just, you know, bright saturated colors. There are a lot of slightly more muted colors, lovely pastels. It's just a beautiful set, beautiful colors, beautiful formula, amazing price. It has everything. Let's talk a little bit about Studio Essentials. I have a clear favorite for this year, which is this water bucket. This is from Mijello. It costs, I don't remember exactly the price, but it's under $10 if memory serves. I absolutely love it. I used to use jars like yogurt jars or pickle jars or whatever, And of course that works well too, but this is just perfect for me for several reasons. First of all, it has this, the price is great. It has this place where you can lay down your brushes when they're wet as you're painting with them, which is something that I do all the time. I use this feature all the time. It has 3 compartments, and then also this place, which sometimes I use to put like a little paper towel, or I have these cut up cloth diapers that I have a ton from when my kids were babies, and now I use them as like rags. So I put one here, and then it can also help you just dab extra water. You can also divide these if you use a lot of mixed media like I do, and you don't want to like mix your dirty water. You can write it somewhere that, I don't know, this one is for watercolors and this one is for acrylics or something like this. The bottom of them, I can't show you because it's full of water, has on 2 of them, it has these ridges which help clean the brushes. Obviously having 3 containers is really helpful with, you know, I don't have to like empty it as often as I did with the glass jars. It's very easy to carry around, fill up. There's also just like a round version, but with just 1 compartment, so that might work for some people, but I just love this. It's perfect, 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 perfect. I've used it like every single day since I got it. This is a great little mixing bowl. This is plastic. I think they also make something similar from porcelain if you prefer that, but it's just, I use it for acrylics, and it's just really handy and convenient to use. So I will put links to everything that I can find below. And then when it comes to palettes, I think this year I have a gazillion of them. I think the ones that I used the most were these tearaway palettes. So this one is new. I really needed something, and my local art store, all they had were like these ones with the holes. So I got the cheaper one, the cheapest one they had, which is this thing. This is a 9x12, 3 sides glue bound, suit for oil, acrylic, watercolor paint, tear off paper palette. So this is the one that I got. They come usually in white and gray. I had a very simple gray one, square, without the hole, and I really, really enjoyed it. This is currently my favorite palette to use because once I'm done, I can just tear it away and get rid of it, and there's no lengthy cleaning process. So I highly recommend, if you know, if you haven't found your palette, or you're not, I don't know, the whole mixing color is not working for you, try something like this and see, maybe that will work for you. 2024 was definitely the year of the sketchbook, especially starting the spring. I don't think I've ever finished so many sketchbooks, and if you want to see flip-throughs, join the Joy Art Club, get the archives. There are a lot of flip-throughs there, and if you want to start and finish your own sketchbook, then join the Sketchbook Challenge. I will leave links to all of that below. So as you can see, there are some winners here, and definitely my most used sketchbook this year was the Art Creations. The Art Creation, what's great about it is, first of all, you see the pretty colors. Other sketchbooks don't come in such pretty colors. These are my favorites, as you can see, the purple, the aqua one, and of course the coral. Love, love, love these. This is actually my current one, so it's a bit cheating because it's only, it's not finished. What I love about these is they're very, very affordable. In Europe, they are, I think, around 8 euros, these ones, if I'm not mistaken. That means, and you get a lot of pages, and the paper is really okay for things that are not watercolors. You can use watercolors in these. I have used watercolors in these, but the paper buckles and crinkles and not in an attractive way. So I do mention that, but it does, like, it can take it. especially if you tend to sketch with watercolors and or gouache and you don't use a ton of water. Then I would say this is a really solid choice. So this was definitely a star. My favorite size and format is this one. It's portrait. I did go through also the landscape one that is slightly, it's just like a touch bigger than this. And I only kind of connected with this sketchbook when I started using it for these abstracts. Up until then, I wasn't really loving it, but for these, it was super fun. And so I think I will do that again and just dedicate it to these like abstracts because the format was really fun. But other than that, I really prefer this one. Now, a newcomer into my life. So these are definitely in my top 10 for 2024. A newcomer into my life was the Pith sketchbook, and I have a bunch more. I have like all the sizes. What is lovely about this is, I don't know, first of all, there's something about it that just makes you want to grab it. That's how I feel. I know this is very, very personal, but that's the way that I can describe it. Now, the paper here, these are more expensive than these. These are... they're kind of like a bit fancier, I would say. The paper is thicker, but they can take a lot. Again, if you're more a watercolor purist, these are not the best for you. But if you love mixed media and you love layers of markers and crayons and pastels and pencils and paint and all those things, I think you would enjoy these. And so I just really, really love them. And they also have really pretty covers. I don't know why the ones that I finished have this like natural cover, but they have really beautiful colors. And so if you're a sketchbooker, you should really try these because they are fantastic. This is my favorite size. This is the Cara Cara. It's the second smallest one. The smallest one is really too small for my liking, so I just used it as like a swatch book. But this one I think is like a great everyday size, and then there are two bigger ones and one landscape size. I think that's it. Let me know in the comments if you want to see like the favorite colors that I used this year, and tell me in which medium are you're most interested in, you know, pencils, markers, watercolors, or acrylics, because there's a lot to get through. So it would be really nice to see which medium people are most interested in. This is a new, I happened to go to the art store, as one does, and I just had to grab this. I've seen these, you know, for a long time. This is nothing new, but I wanted to try and see how these would look in a sketch. If this was like too kitschy, too gimmicky, or if it would actually look fun. And I don't know. Guess I'll have to try and see. So these are, I think they're called like magic pencils or something like this. Several brands make them. This one is from Koh-i-Noor. But yeah, this is not a favorite. I just got it, but it was here, so I thought I'd show it to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments which art supplies are your absolute favorites, the ones that made your year, the ones that you don't want to live without, that you would go and buy immediately if you lost them. I would love to know, and it also helps other viewers figure out what artists really, really love to use. Yeah, it's one of my favorite videos to make. It's probably very hard to make it, to think about a whole year in review. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so, so much for watching. I wish you happy holidays, wonderful new year, only success, good health, everything you wish for yourselves. I wish it for you also. And yeah, I'll probably see you in 2025.